Hello and welcome. This is part 2 to the gold to silver ratio video within computer programming using Small Basic. The coding in here starts within silver, colon, and a number running in order, which has the price. This tells us on period number such, the price was such. And this is listed for several periods. We can see it's done for 588. The same is also true for gold. So the code will start the program stating what the prices are. Very important to use. The go-to statement tells it to go to start it. So it's got to find start it, which is right here. These are subroutines, which I'll get into shortly. These are all defining integers. There's the buy amount, that equals 10, which will be used for how much is bought every month. Player B silver, or PLBS, that's how many silver ounces I'm going to start them with. 16 for gold 1. XAG, XAU. Same type of deal, but a different entity playing a different way. Same number, 16 ounces of silver and gold as well. So that works out so that they both have the same bet amounts. They both start with the same to see which one does better. Mon count or month count equals 0. So I'm going every 12 months. I want to reset this. So I'm going to just put the condition in now for that. And the condition equals low. Condition is a variable again, and it's going to have either low, medium, or high. And I had to put low in because the original gold to silver ratio was 16 to 1. Text window. This is going to put a window on the screen that's going to read how many loops 588 max. And here the sum equals text window read, which means the user has to write the number in, and whatever that number is becomes the variable, the sum. And now we have a for statement. So this runs a loop several times over. So we're going to name the loop the run, which is equal 1 to the sum. So whatever number I put in, so the first time I'll put 588, it'll go 1 to 588. So within the loop, it's going to start the loop by calculating what the gold to silver ratio happens to be. So we'll use GSR for that, which will equal gold colon the run. So if the run happens to be its first loop, it'll go gold price 1 or period 1 divided by silver period 1. If it's in run 4, 5, 6, it'll do it so on and so forth. Then we have silver buy equals to buy amount divided by 2. What this entire code here does is determine how much it's going to buy in each one, because the buy amount started off at 10 and it's going to be going a lot higher when we have, if the month count is 12, because here it adds it one more. So it started off at 0. So after the first one's done, it's going to give it the number 1. So the next loop will be 2, and on the 12th loop, it'll go to 12, and then it'll ask, yes, if mon count is 12. So yeah, is it 12? And most of the time it's no. It'll just leave and go where the end if is. But if it is 12, then it has to execute this, which means it would reset mon count to 0. And then the buy amount equals buy amount multiply 105. So on the first time it would do it, it would take 10, which is equal to 10 multiply 105. And then you would get, in that position, 10.5 would be the new buy amount. And then that would keep going up in the interest level. So that's it for that. And that calculates just a simple way of getting gold and silver, buying half your dollars in gold, half your dollars in silver every month for every time for a long period of time. You'd have to be pretty young, growing pretty old to do such. Continuing further, this part in here is where it determines if the condition changes, with 70 being high, 55 being low, and in the middle 62.5 being neutral. So if it's low, it needs to get above 62.5 to get neutral. So that's what it's going to ask here. And in the rare situation, it goes from like 62 to 71. And then I'm going to have this part in here. So when that occurs, it's going to use this to change the condition, and then this to go to the earlier subroutines that I was talking about. This goes to MEDF, which would be going to medium, going to high, and then it does the same thing. If it's medium, it's going to check to see if it changes, and if it's high, it's going to see if it changes. So going back to the subroutines, what it does in here on the MEDF is it's going to just use a variable cash, and it's going to do the calculation of their total silver holdings, PLBS, multiply the silver price, adding the same thing for gold. So this just gives me a dollar value for what it's worth. But what I want to do if it goes to medium is put it all in gold and silver 50-50 for its time. And I do that by this calculation by taking the half of the cash value and then putting it into the price of gold and silver as such. And then end sub brings it back to where it came from. So if it goes to the point where it has to go to medium, it's going to come in here and then return. If it has to go to high, in this situation, the code says that the same code here is here, but player B silver is equal to cash divided by silver, the price there. So if I got $1 million worth of dollars and silver's $10, I'd have 100,000, and then gold would be nothing. And if it goes low, you do the opposite. You put everything into gold and nothing into silver. So that's what happens within that check. So now what it needs to do, after it's done that, it knows what the condition is for this turn because it's checked to see if it needs a change and done so in that situation. And it's now going to buy its normal thing. Now the first person always bought half into gold, half into silver, which will be the case every time it's medium. As we can see on this one here, if the condition's medium, then buy half and half. However, if it's low, then I want you to buy gold. And if it's high, I want you to be silver. That's how we're going to do it. And then at the very bottom, we have the final results, which the top will show just the original buyer. And then the bottom in here, cash value equals, this does the calculation, how many ounces I got, multiply the price, a simple calculation for such. And then to display it, the one on the bottom part is going to show the one who sold all their gold for silver, or they took all that type of stuff and only bought gold, only bought silver, because they realize price pays and you buy low, sell high, and that's pretty much what they're doing. So let's run this for the first time and see what the results happen to be. So as we stated, there's the original question, how many loops? 588 max. So let's do the 588, and the results come up. So on the top, 33.5 almost, that's the amount of gold that would be accumulated, and the silver accumulated over 1,600, translating into about $65,000 of value. By doing this play in the high-low game, I have absolutely no gold and close to 10,000 ounces of silver for a net value of over 150,000, or about 2.5 times larger than the very simple way. And buying and selling as this code would be is still extremely simple, but it gets to the point that that's what you have to do, is buy low, sell high. And of course, me looking at the chart made it easy to determine where low and high has been for the last several years. But when 1968 started, who would have thought that 40 or 50 would be considered low when they might have considered it high? And then again, although before in the past, in 1932, it actually did have a significant gold to silver ratio. So I should just completely forget that statement. However, when I look at the actual silver situation today, where you have 9 times as much silver being mined as gold, silver actually is physically used and consumed, where gold isn't as often or nowhere near as often. And we have this supply being in looks to be big problems within silver that I have to think that there's a good chance, at least I'm going to be investing to such, that the ratio will probably have a good chance of testing that 9 that I'm talking about, probably at least 16, but even go below 9 as markets go way too low, way too high. That's basically how I take a look at it myself anyway. So I'm investing as such. I'm just giving the information as I see it and the data as I present it. But here's just another example. Say 167 periods in. This was a situation in which the person had 16 ounces of silver and 25 ounces of gold, and the reason for that was because they started with 16 and the computer has never ordered them at this point to do anything, because it took several periods for it to get out of that low ball stage. Because even though, like, again, 1932, when silver was 25 cents and gold was about $20, that meant the ratio was pretty high, but that was really a brief period of time. And it's been a long time since I've seen the gold to silver ratio charts pre-1968. So I really don't want to say too much on it, but it did mean that it took into the 1980s, making no change in the market, always going low, always buying gold throughout the 1980s, totally just watching the Hunt brothers do their silver thing without any involvement whatsoever at the time. So an interesting thing would be, how would this have looked? This is the spreadsheet where I got the data. In 1980, when it actually hit its best high on here. Or 79 to 80. So we would look at probably the period number 144. So let's take a look at that one. Well, it's a good thing they held on to those 16 grams, or 16 ounces, excuse me, of the silver, but it was actually losing at that point. Why? Because the ratio got skewed. 16. When I'm considering low at 55 and it's down to 16, then that is a big difference. And you would be buying gold and losing value every single time because silver kept on gaining in gold, where in this case it was working 50-50. Furthermore, let's take a look to a situation when the gold to silver ratio was close to 100. We have 98 in here, so that one will work. 360 or 278. Some time had passed, and just so we're curious about what month this was February 1991. So this would have been about almost like 20, well, plus 20 years in. And at this point, holding nothing but gold because the ratio was way too damn high. $9,600 compared to $82.23. Now, I think a big reason from that was because it already had decent profits from before, and I'm certain that when I look at, say, somewhere in the neutral area, say field 236, that it might be a better lead. Let's take a look. Yeah, exactly. 10,000 to 16,000. So when you play this and the market gets out of hand like that, it can hurt. But if you're right within the market, that's where the gains will come into play. So thank you for tuning in to this video and have yourself a magnificent day. Bye-bye.